All right. Well, welcome everyone to my, I guess, weekly long video now. This was not my intention last week when I filmed that with Father Federico, but we got a lot of positive response.
Mhm.
Um, and Victoria had some great ideas for some more content to bring to you guys this week. So welcome, Victoria Clarizio, to our second weekly long form video. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Yeah. So we started off last week, Father Federico and I just kind of,
hmm
you know, shooting back and forth a little bit about what our quarantine
hmm
experience has been. So tell me a little bit about what your life has been like. How are you feeling? What's your day-to-day been like?
I'm feeling pretty good now. I feel like the first few days I was like angry and frustrated, and I was like, I want to do things and I can't. It was kind of crazy because I came back from traveling a little over 2 weeks ago. So I went on
Uh,
airplanes and stuff,
oh
and then I
gosh.
came back to all of this, and it was just like the world just is falling apart. I was like, what is going on? And then so I had to be in super strict quarantine until a couple of days ago.
Okay.
So I really haven't been doing much or going out much.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So
What have you been doing so you've been cooped up a lot. What have you been doing to I guess deal with being cooped up? Like so you wake up in the morning, take me through a quarantine day in the life of Victoria.
well, I have to say it's digressed a lot in the past 2 weeks. So the first few days I was really good about like I got up at a pretty decent time, like 6 or 7, tried to like pray, um, watch mass. I might have done that later in the day. I don't remember. Like get dressed in real clothes, start work at 9 o'clock because I've been working from home. So like that's given my day some structure.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then in the afternoon, like read whatever. Um, and some of my like young adult groups that I participate in are still meeting, so doing that kind of stuff in the evening or just, calling friends, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's definitely like digress into like getting up later, not really like getting dressed, kind of working whenever throughout the day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can relate to that certainly. I mean, I the we are both blessed, I think, to be able to work from home.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
because that does provide, at least a little bit of like structure and rhythm to our days.
Mhm.
Um, I this is about the most dressed up that I have been since the only times I'll dress up are if I'm on camera for like a Zoom meeting or
Yes.
something like
Uh-huh.
that, or if I'm watching a live stream mass. Like I still like to, try
Yeah,
to dress
yeah.
up a little bit.
hmm
But aside from that, it's like shorts and sweats, man. That's what it's been
Yeah.
the
And
whole
I've
time.
definitely rocked the like put on a nice shirt but still have sweats on. Like
Hey, there's a reason the camera's up here. There's a reason. No,
exactly.
I'm wearing jeans. I'm safe. It's okay. Um, what has been the hardest part of quarantine for you and the best thing about this situation for you?
Yeah. So the hardest thing I would say is just feeling kind of like helpless, trying to like do things from home, especially with work. So for those who don't know, I'm the administrative assistant for communications at St. Bridget. So my job is kind of important right now. Like I am helping to run like the live streams and all that, and trying to do that from home and not
Mm-hmm.
being physically there to help the priest is has been really frustrating sometimes. Um, yeah, like things going wrong, and I'm like, I can't be there to fix it. And like, yeah, so that's definitely been the hardest thing. I want to just be like, just go there and do it for you, kind of thing.
Definitely. I feel that.
Yeah. So, and then the best thing I would say is just like, I mean, more time for prayer for sure. Um, and just like, I really feel like this is forcing me to like refocus and like, I mean, just a greater appreciation for the sacraments, especially the Eucharist. Yeah, just giving me a greater hunger and like appreciation for how amazing it is.
Mm, definitely. I mean, y- there's that old saying, it's like you don't know what you have until you can't have it anymore or something like
Mhm.
that. And it's like we definitely take the Eucharist for granted as
Oh,
Catholics. Like
absolutely.
I
Exactly.
do that all the
Yeah.
time. Like you try your best to like really internalize what it actually is, but it is impossible to fully grasp that every time you receive the Eucharist. And
Exactly. Yeah.
but when you can't receive it, it's like, oh gosh, it's just spiritual hunger.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm just hoping that that will happen for a lot of people.
Mm, definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
one of the things was I stopped watching daily live stream mass for a few days because it was honestly just like too painful. I was
Mm,
like, I just want to be there for real and receive the Eucharist.
mm,
And like I talked to my spiritual director about it, and he was like, you need to make yourself watch it and not like avoid that pain. Like let
mm,
yourself feel that hunger. It's a good thing.
right.
Oh snap. Okay.
It's like it's just a manifestation of your devotion to the Eucharist, which is like there are a lot worse things to be fiending for than the Eucharist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I think for me, the hardest part has probably been just like this feeling of being caged a little
Mm,
bit. So I'm in a house with a lot of people. It's sometimes
yeah.
hard to find like that private space without
Mm,
just like holding up in my bedroom, which gets old real quick. Um, and not being physically present with friends, even like the rhythm of like driving to and from work, uh,
yeah.
is something that I really I get a lot out of. It's like my
Mm,
my ease into the day and decompress at the end of the day.
mhm,
Um, so that's definitely been challenging. Um, and also just the tendency to kind of fall into those that like guilty pleasure entertainment stuff. So just like playing a ton of video
mhm.
games, which I am still doing, binge watching Tiger King because everybody and their mother is doing that right now. That kind of stuff. It's certainly like it's there, and of course that's going to fill some
Mhm.
of our time. But the best part I think has been I have been somewhat surprisingly, I've actually been getting outside more.
That's
Um, I I'm going for walks like every day now,
mhm,
because I just need to like get out at the end of the day.
mhm.
Um, and then also my family and I have been doing a lot more fun stuff together. Like it's been board game heaven around here,
That's awesome.
which is oh, it's really nice for me because I am a huge board gamer, and
Mhm.
anyone can get the work. So I'm very excited to continue that competitive spirit.
Mm.
So. So, Victoria and I, she sent me a text earlier this week with I thought was a fantastic idea. So last week, Father Federico and I were speaking to our young people just about like what it means to be young and Catholic and in quarantine at
Mhm.
various different stages of Catholicism. Be it fully devout, be it I don't even know if this is real, be it
Mm.
somewhere in the middle. Um,
Mhm.
and Victoria had this great idea of, well, we have a roadmap of different people who have done great things in times of despair, in times of plague,
Mhm.
sometimes even in times of quarantine. And they're the saints. And Victoria, you are definitely much more of an expert on the saints than I am. So I think you have a couple of saints that you want to bring to our young
Mhm.
people's attention.
Yeah. So one of the things I've been doing in my free time is learning more about saints, like watching movies and reading about them.
Mm,
And I kind of got started on this because I don't just one day I wanted to watch a movie, but I felt like I needed something like inspirational, some saint who like dealt with a really hard time and just like to see how they dealt with it. And Joan of Arc kept coming to mind because she's just awesome, like total just warrior. Um,
tell us a
yeah,
little bit about her story for those who don't know.
yeah. So Joan of Arc, she lived in France in the early 1400s, I think. And she, at the time, Britain had taken over part of France, and there was a contention about like who was the real king of France. It's a little complicated, the political history, but basically, the person who was supposed to be the king was kind of in hiding and kind of like, yeah, people were like claiming someone else was the king. Anyway, it's a whole thing. Um, and Joan of Arc just lived in this little like country town, you know, um, but they were always under danger of being attacked by the British. So when she was a little girl, her family was very pious. She started hearing saints talk to her, and they kind of started indicating to her, like, God wants you to do something great with your life.
What?
Yeah. St. Catherine of Alexandria was the main one that talked to her. And so when she was only 17, and God, through these saints, told her, you need to like basically lead the French army to put the proper king back on the throne. This 17-year-old girl, God is like,
Wow.
you have to go tell these like army commanders that you're supposed to lead the army. Like, they're just gonna laugh at her.
That's
So,
crazy.
but she did it. She's so courageous. She went to the army commander, and she basically convinced them that there was this legend at the time in France. Well, yeah, this legend at the time in France that a young maid would be the one that would save France, basically. So
Mm.
basically, they were convinced that she was that woman.
This is like a
So that's,
prophecy or something?
yeah, prophecy. Yeah, yeah. It was pretty
Interesting.
crazy. So basically, they realized like she's probably the fulfillment of that prophecy. So that's how they let her basically lead the army. um,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, and so I watched a movie about her, which is really good. And the one thing that stuck out to me was that her role, like, obviously shouldn't actually have like military skills. Like, that wasn't what she was there for. She was there to unite the people of France and to give them hope,
Mm.
because at that point they had been like, well, I guess we're just going to get overrun by the British, like we're just going to take it lying down, whatever. They kind of had like despaired, and there was a lot of disunity among the
Mm.
people, like, oh, I'm from this village, like
Mm.
not identifying themselves as like Frenchmen.
Mm.
um yeah, so that was a big theme in the movie, was just like her role of giving the people hope. And I was like, we need that right now. Like, we
That's
need
yeah.
someone to like give us hope. And also, she really helped restore the French people's faith in God, which ironically had wavered during the Black Plague, which happened shortly before she lived.
Hmm.
So it's all just like connected.
So it sounds like there was this. So just let me get this straight. There's a big plague, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people died.
Yeah.
People weren't going to church as much, and
Mm-hmm.
people were kind of losing hope to a
Yeah.
degree. That
Mm,
sounds almost exactly like what's happening right now. I mean, we
exactly.
have
Yeah.
a pandemic like we've never seen before, and
Mhm.
there are people who have died from this.
Yep.
And I think you said at the beginning, like the hardest part of this for you is to not despair and to make sure that
Mhm.
you're staying hopeful and
Yeah. Hmm.
looking to the good things. Um, and that's just like so like that's a perfect blueprint for what we're supposed to do. And there are certainly, I mean, there's one of the most helpful things for a time of despair is finding those people who can bring you hope. It
Exactly. Yeah.
could be your mom, your sister, your brother. It could be
Mhm.
Father Romans, Father Federico during one of their homilies.
Yeah.
It could be
Hmm.
anybody, really. You
Yeah.
know, anybody good. But that's looking for those places of hope is really important. I want to talk a little bit about a saint that I like, if that's all right with you.
Hmm.
Um, Saint Dominic, I think, is someone who's really relevant to this time as well, because so Saint Dominic is best known for going to and ministering to the lepers on an island leper colony. So if you don't know what leprosy is, it's a there's a lot of it's a disease that's very prevalent in the Bible. Jesus
Hmm.
cleanses a lot of lepers. They had these things called leper colonies. It was a disease that, it would disfigure your skin. Sometimes you could lose fingers or hands or things like that to this disease. It was not, you didn't want leprosy. Let's put it that way. And it was very contagious. So essentially, when someone got leprosy, they would ship them off to this colony full of other lepers, and they'd have to stay there so that they wouldn't infect the normal people. And I mean, there was a lot of suffering in places like this, but no one would go there because they were afraid of getting leprosy themselves. But St. Dominic said, screw it. They're people too. They need the Eucharist. They need
Mm.
ministering to. They need the sacraments. They need a priest. Um, so Saint Dominic actually went to an island leper colony and risked his own life, kind of helping these people and being
Mm-hmm.
a priest and someone who brought hope to them. Um, and Saint Dominic actually did get leprosy and die from it
Mm-hmm.
afterwards. So he made the ultimate sacrifice for these people. But I cannot look at that story and not think of the
Mm-hmm.
people on the front lines of this
Yeah.
COVID-19 outbreak today. I mean, we have what an exercise in human courage and strength.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
this is there's some great videos out there of like cities scheduling applause for first responders and stuff like that. You should go check
Mm-hmm.
them out if you haven't seen them on YouTube or something like that, because it's so like it's a whole city applauding out of their apartment windows. It's unbelievable. But
Mm-hmm.
that just they are those doctors, those nurses, those healthcare practitioners are following the roadmap that Saint Dominic has laid out for us, because
Mm-hmm.
he didn't run away and put the sick over here, even though he had a
Yeah.
danger of getting sick himself. He said, I'm going to go
Mm-hmm.
to you and risk myself for your betterment. And I just think that
Mm-hmm.
is so, it's really important to look at the positives in a time like this. And that is
Yeah.
a huge one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And the priests
Absolutely.
who are also putting themselves in danger to get people the sacraments.
That's right. Yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
from everything from last rites to, I mean, we're doing, even at St. Bridget, we're doing drive-through confessions. Yeah.
Yeah. Which uh the Saint Dominic you were talking about, he apparently had to like go to confession on a boat and
That's
he
right.
like shouted his confession. So like that's what we're doing now.
That's right. Just shout your sins to the world.
Yeah, maybe not, but
There's all kinds of similarities with
yeah.
Saint Dominic and with both our medical practitioners and our priests. You're absolutely right about that.
Mhm.
All right, who else you got for me? Give me somebody else.
Oh, my favorite, Saint Therese of Lisieux. I am a little bit obsessed with her.
Mm-hmm.
So again, providentially, I've already been reading, even before this started for Lent, I've been reading this book called The Passion of Saint Therese.
Mm,
And it's about the last few months of her life. She died from tuberculosis, which is a respiratory infection.
mm,
So, not too unsimilar to COVID-19.
mm.
Basically, you die from your lungs being destroyed and you can't breathe.
Pleasant.
So, and this book just describes like the horrible suffering that she went through. And she
Mm,
lived at the very end of the 1800s, so 19th century.
mm-hmm.
And I mean, they just didn't have the same medical. So they really didn't have anything to help her ease her
Right.
suffering. Um, but the reason that I wanted to bring her up specifically is that she was a cloistered nun,
Mm,
also in France.
mm.
And she became a nun when she was 15. So again, you're not too
What?
young to be
Holy.
holy. And she died when she was 24.
Mm,
So she lived as a nun for 9 years. Um, she never, once she entered the convent, she never left. She was in the same building for that whole time. Sound
mm.
familiar?
Yeah.
Um, but she's one of the greatest saints that we have in the church. She's a doctor of the church, which means that she contributed significantly to the theology of the church.
Mm,
So saints like that show us that there's no excuse. Like
mm.
we're cloistered right now and stuck inside, but we could still become great saints. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, she's a really humble example,
Mm-hmm.
because she she was a young girl who entered a convent and she
Mm-hmm.
lived her life in the convent well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's it.
she's also a doctor of the church who contributed
Yeah.
significantly to
Mm-hmm.
like the theology and teaching of the
Yeah.
church.
Yeah.
So it's
And
like this
she,
little,
yeah.
sorry, go
Sorry.
ahead.
She actually loved Saint Joan of Arc, which is cool. And
Mm.
she, in her autobiography, Story of a Soul, which is awesome and everyone should read,
Mm.
she talks about how she had these just great desires for holiness in her
Mm.
heart. Like she wanted to be a martyr and be like Joan of Arc and like do all these great things. And she realized that God was just calling her to a humble life of hiddenness and just to be faithful to the everyday life that he was calling her to.
Mm. That's not that can't have been easy for her to accept. Like,
Mhm.
if you want to be this great warrior martyr, but God has
Yeah.
given you this frail little body, and
Mhm.
that, I mean, she was like confined to her
Yeah.
bed for long
Yeah.
stretches of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Not
Mm.
even. Yeah.
I
Mhm.
have been confined to my bed for long stretches of time, not because of frailty or illness, but just because it's comfortable and I'm quarantined. So,
Oh, maybe not the same.
no, not at all the same. Not at all the
But
same.
yeah, that's true.
So,
Yeah.
um, so I can read the thoughts of people listening and watching this right now, and I can hear you saying, so yeah, sure, maybe Saint Therese was stuck inside, and maybe Saint Joan of Arc was young, but I can't do these huge, crazy, amazing things. I can't write a book to advance the theology of the church,
Mhm.
and it's not really a conflict that I can just like take over the army right now and lead. Um, those are, I mean, extraordinary, extraordinary things. And so I wanted to bring up a saint that I actually had never heard of until a couple of weeks ago, until actually the priest who baptized me, my good friend Father Fred Nickel, introduced me to Saint Isidore the Farmer. Have you heard of Saint Isidore the Farmer?
I have, but I don't know much about him.
Okay, great. So this is all you need to know about Saint Isidore the Farmer. He was Spanish, and he lived a normal life well. That's it. Full stop. He
Cool.
just he was married, he had children, he had a family, he was a farmer, and
Mhm.
he lived a normal life well. He was compassionate, he was kind, he was good, all the things that we would expect to hear about a saint, but
Mhm.
he did not lead an army. He didn't
Mhm.
write these amazing theological manuscripts. Like, he didn't start a
Mhm.
monastery and go hole up in the mountains or
Mhm.
whatever. He was just a dude.
Mhm.
He was just a farmer. And that's all he needed to be.
Mhm.
That's what God wanted from him, was to live a normal life well. And maybe you're not in a position to, go out and fix everything on your own. You're
Yeah.
you're not going to like, oh, the saint who developed the coronavirus vaccine. That's maybe you're not able to do that. I'm not either. That's okay. Um, but I think that God is calling all of us to lead normal lives well right now. Like, you don't have to
Mhm.
do crazy, crazy stuff. Maybe all you can do right now is wash some dishes without being asked. Maybe it's inviting a younger sibling to do something fun with you instead of going off and watching Tiger King by yourself. Maybe it's sending a letter to your grandma who lives alone.
Mhm.
Like, anything. You don't have to shatter the earth to do the right thing. You,
Mhm.
you mentioned you had a quote that ties in really well here earlier, I think.
Yes. Grab it. This is from someone named Cardinal Manning. Don't know who he is, but it was in this book I was reading. He says that holiness consists not in doing uncommon things, but in doing all common things with an uncommon fervor.
Hmm. I mean, it sounds super, super, super easy. And it sounds like, something that we could do every day, but that's not, I mean, it made Saint Isidore a saint, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So definitely, I would encourage, especially our young people, to look for those little ways that you
Mm-hmm.
can live a normal life well. Like, maybe take on some good habits, maybe try to read a little bit more, maybe get rid of some
Mm-hmm.
bad habits. Like, there's this gift of time is, knock on wood, God willing, never going to be replicated.
Yeah, hopefully.
But let's use it while we have it. Live the good life
Yeah.
well. Live the normal life well. Um,
Yeah.
so, all right, it's all well and good for you and I to talk about saints off in the past and up in these general terms, but I wanna get down into it a little bit, Victoria. So I want you and I to talk about how we specifically can grow in sainthood during this time of quarantine. And I hope that by us talking about our personal lives in that way, maybe we can, jog the imaginations of our young people a little bit. So tell me some ways that you can slash have slash want to grow in holiness during this time of being cooped up.
Yeah, I feel like one of the things I've always struggled with is being undisciplined and kind of lazy. So
Mm,
this is showing me just how true that is. And I have an opportunity now to really learn how to be disciplined on my own,
mm,
and not with something external forcing me to have
mm.
a schedule. And honestly, one of the biggest ways I can grow in holiness is just to like get to bed at a decent hour. It sounds so
Yeah.
simple, but like after a certain time, I'm just like scrolling on my phone and I'm like, what am I doing? Like
Mm,
I could be getting a good night's sleep or
mm.
reading something that's more edifying. Yeah.
Makes me think of have you seen How I Met Your Mother?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing good ever happens after 2 a.m.
Right? Yeah. Or after like 9:30 p.m.
Or yeah, well, depending on yeah, wow, going to bed earlier. Just like
Yeah.
it's not at
Because then you
all.
get up earlier. It just I feel like that one thing makes such a huge difference in how
Mm.
the rest of your day goes. So that's
Well,
my
when everything is so wide open and stretched out like this, one little thing can make much more of
right.
a difference
Mm-hmm.
because your mood matters a lot more when you have all
That
this
too.
time to do with what you
Yeah.
please. Like
Yeah.
if I'm working, if I was at the church today working, it wouldn't really matter if I woke up on the right side of the bed or the wrong side of the bed. Like, sure, I might be in a better
Mm-hmm.
mood, but I'm still gonna go to work because
Right.
I
Right.
need to go to work and be a responsible adult, right? But
Uh-huh.
when you're home, if you wake up on the right side of the bed, maybe you'll get a bunch of stuff done, great. But if you wake up on the wrong side of the bed,
Yeah.
there's no one who's gonna know. If you just
Right.
lay there and watch Netflix all day, the only
Exactly.
accountability you have is with yourself.
Hmm.
That's tough,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. I feel like this time is really like showing me the things that I need to work on and just like making very clear, like, yep, this is the time to do some like self-reflection and just ask God, like, what do you want to work on in me?
Mm, yeah, that's really good for you to just have that self knowledge.
Hmm.
And I think God is definitely showing us all a little bit of what we need to work on. Um,
Yeah.
so from my point of view, I am like obviously, if you couldn't tell by now, I like to talk. Um, and but that's not 100%. I know I'm sure you are familiar with, the Myers-Briggs personality
Mhm.
test and introvert versus extrovert. Well, I am
Mhm.
smack down the middle. So I
Oh,
have an
wow.
X instead of an E or an I. So I'm 50-50. Um,
Wow.
and in times like this, I definitely tend more towards the introvert side.
Hmm.
Um, and so there will be days where I will find myself spending like the majority of the day up here in my room because I'll work in
Mm-hmm.
here and then to relax, I'll either read a book or play some video games or whatever in here.
Hmm.
Um, and then it's dinner time and I'll come downstairs for the first time of the day, and that's not healthy. And that's not
Yeah.
good. Um, so I think something that I can really do to try to grow in holiness is to spend less time with my books, my work, my computer, my video games, whatever, um, and more time with my family. I mentioned we've been playing a ton of board games, and that certainly helps. Um, so I think just leaning into that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that I actually really struggle with is so I haven't been watching much of the news as of late, mainly because I'm like, all right, stuff is going on. We know what's going on. I know what I
Yeah.
need to do. I need to stay in here. I need to wash my hands, and we're gonna be okay, right? Um, but not everybody can do that. A
Hmm.
lot of people need to process more externally. Um, and I have friends who are like that, and I think God is kind of nudging me to be like, yo, give them a listening ear a little bit. Because just because you can like shut everything out and be okay doesn't mean
Yeah.
that other people can. and it's not just about me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
definitely.
that's
Mm-hmm.
tough. That's tough. All right. Well, as we slowly start to come into a landing here, I have a couple of things that I want people to take away, and then maybe you can, hop on this and tell me what your thoughts are. Um,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't easy for anybody. We're all, there's my grandmother is 93, and she was alive during World War II, and she said even back then it wasn't quite like this. I mean, this is no one
Wow.
living has experienced something quite like this before. So we're all in the same
Mm.
boat. Not easy for anybody. Um, and it's okay to, you mentioned feeling like angry and frustrated,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
this is frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Can confirm from a personal state, it's frustrating. I don't like being cooped up inside either. Um,
Yeah.
but that's not necessarily a bad thing to
Mm-hmm.
accept that frustration a little bit. Like maybe
Yeah.
maybe I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you have any thoughts on that, but I'm just kind of that's something that I've been thinking about. Is like it's all right
Mm-hmm.
to feel
Yeah.
frustrated and angry.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's just a good rule of thumb, like psychologically.
Mm,
Like it's never helpful to repress your feelings.
mm,
Um, it's better if you just let yourself feel them and then like hopefully come to a place of acceptance.
mm,
Um, yeah, just like deal with them instead of kind of letting them fester. Um,
mm. So you like
yeah,
talk it
and
out.
yeah, there whatever your processing method is. Yeah, I know I found a lot of peace once I like um first of all took the focus off of myself and like
Mm,
started praying for other people and
mm,
thinking about like all the people that are in a worse situation than me.
mm.
And just kind of accepted like I can't change anything right now, so I'm just gonna make the best of the situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the I was mentioning last week with Father Federico the Serenity Prayer, and that's like
Yeah.
that's the
Mhm.
the gold standard right now. Do you know the Serenity Prayer?
Yeah, I
Sort
think
of
so.
ish.
I
Yeah,
don't know
that's
if
okay.
I,
That's okay. So
yeah,
just as a
but the,
refresher for anyone who's watching who doesn't remember, and again, I don't know the exact wording, but the premise is the important part. It's like, Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And it goes on longer, but that's the part that everybody remembers, and I think that goes
yeah,
to what you're talking about right now.
yeah,
Recognize what we can't change, everything
exactly.
that's going on
And
out there.
yeah,
Change what we can, what we do with the time, our day to day,
exactly. Our
and
response. Yeah.
know the difference.
Mhm.
That's the hardest one, but know the
Yep.
difference.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, just a couple more parting thoughts on my end. I encourage you all to make a phone call, have a video chat with someone, write a
Mhm.
letter to someone, stay in touch with other humans. That is super, super important at a time like this, is to not just kind of shut yourself away with your own thoughts,
Mhm.
especially if you are prone to getting yourself worked up. Um,
Mhm.
we need that healthy release. So make sure that you're you know touching base with people and doing that for yourself too. Like, we're social creatures. Humans are not meant just biologically to sit alone by ourselves all the time. So
Yeah. Mhm.
there's a component of needing to speak with other people.
Mhm.
Um, any final thoughts, Victoria, before we sign off? Anything you want them to take away?
I mean, don't forget to connect with God.
Mm,
And I would just encourage everyone to ask God like what he wants you to be doing right now, like what your part is.
mm,
Um, and also like what he wants you to learn from this time.
mm. However small, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Like I said, could just be a normal life lived well.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Victoria, thank you so much for taking time out of your, I'm sure, very busy Friday morning to record this with me. I think it's I've enjoyed our discussion, and I hope that our young people will as well.
Yeah.
Um, so it seems like these videos might be weekly going forward, either coming out on
Yeah.
a Friday
Oh,
morning
yeah.
or a Saturday morning, depending on
Mm-hmm.
our schedule of Facebook releases. So keep an eye out for them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to have some discussions with different members of parish staff or other people that I think might be good to chat
Mm-hmm.
with. So keep your eyes out for the videos. I hope you enjoyed this one. And Victoria, thank you so much again for hopping on.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. We will see you soon.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.